In 2023, the WGA and acting guilds decided to go on strike. Many of their demands were focused on the changing industry landscape due to streaming, both in how they were paid and their royalty kickbacks. However, there was another major concern, that of AI, and how artificial intelligence was going to come in and change both how they work and, let's be honest, if they work. Which is why it's so weird to go to a movie made by Hollywood where the entire plot is about the rise of AI and how it will be used to replace humans as the next phase of intelligent evolution. It's certainly topical, but you'd obviously expect the AI to be the villains, a natural extension of the fear of those in Hollywood that their jobs will be consumed by a series of ones and zeros. An analogy, perhaps, over their own anxieties of being replaced. Maybe a movie similar in, a bizarre way to say Singin' in the Rain, a film about how sound fundamentally changed the industry. But instead, with murder bots trying to kill people. But not so much. Instead, the creator is written from the perspective of the humans being the bad guys and the AI being the innocent and hunted. It's a strange reversal within the modern day landscape, as AI is both exciting with the release of the highly publicized ChatGPT, but also scary as we wonder what the next few years will look like as the technology is integrated into various workplaces. Some could say that this may be kind of a tone-deaf movie, that it fails to tap into the cultural zeitgeist of the time and just chooses the safety of a well-known narrative template. An old man of violence having to escort a kid to safety. This is something we've seen repeatedly in Logan, Mandalorian, Sweet Tooth, 65, and Last of Us. We've been seeing these two character archetypes team up a lot recently. And some would say that in a way, it may be seen as cheap to gain the sympathy of the audience and get them easily invested into the story. After all, it makes the murderer and the bad man much easier to root for. And who's really going to root against a wide-eyed and cute innocent child? It's a soft and comforting, recognizable narrative that is sure to be a crowd pleaser. It's proven. One might suspect, with such familiar elements, that AI themselves had written this movie as a way to say, oh no, don't worry about us. You see, we're the good guys. We just want to live in peace and harmony with the humans. We totally aren't going to turn into Skynet and nuke your cities. There have been a few movies recently that do feel almost written by AI, such as Blue Beetle, which regurgitated everything we'd seen before from superheroes in the last 20 years. From a kid like Peter Parker finding an Iron Man suit that is symbiotic like Venom, and then has to stop an evil corporation once owned by a former superhero from duplicating the suit's powers, which you may recognize as the plot of Ant-Man. They say AI can't write anything new and just takes from the familiar, but perhaps we share a few similar flaws because all of these Logan clones and Blue Beetle, they're shockingly written by actual real human people. Despite disconnect from public sentimentalities in the modern world and having elements that have been oversaturated in media, The Creator is surprisingly an effective movie and one that Hollywood should be taking notes from. Will they? Most likely, no, because this is looking to underperform or even bomb at the box office. Yes, it has these familiar elements, and it even ties into the commonly seen anti-war and anti-US military industrial message. It's surface level, and about as deep as a kid's movie like How to Train Your Dragon. But the choose love over hate and the peace over war message, this is an effective and timeless cinematic theme for a reason. The film itself is not concentrated on reflecting the woes of the real world back at us, like something, say, like RoboCop was. Instead, it is more focused on world-building something far in the future, where political and economic changes are so vast that they are not merely a soapbox for current political issues. The closest it gets to this is a parallel where a terrorist attack is launched on American soil, and then they launch an anti-terror campaign on foreign land. You guys may recognize this. It's not exactly subtle. But for the most part, the creator is much more interested in the speculative nature of science fiction, creating a unique world with unique rules that the audience gets to learn and experience as they become more immersed with this fantasy. And it is an effective immersion, shot for a relatively cheap budget on the FX3 camera, a camera I personally own. The movie looks incredible and better than a lot of the $200 million films that are being released today. And I'm looking at you specifically, Flash and Marvel. It put a lot of time into the sweeping vistas set against towering science fiction architecture that help make it feel as if everything's very real and lived in. not just confined small sets of internal white corridors as so many science fiction films basically devolve into. So much of this is outside, with a sense of wide space. The creator is much more interested at looking at the end of human dominance on the planet and the very human response to that. But it does this through the eyes of a character who has both worked for the humans as a double agent and has sympathies to the AI, especially in the form of a wide-eyed and cute kid, as these things happen. And John David Washington does a great job with newcomer Madeline Yuna Voiles. I hope that's right. I'm trying. As they play off each other well in ways that are emotionally effective and never feel cheap and manipulative as they easily could have. A lot of this is due to Voiles, who is making her debut in the film, and at only 9 years old, she shows amazing range and just great early talent. As an action film, the movie thrives by using its uniquely built world and setting to craft action that can only exist in this world and is special to it. Each side is using kind of their own technology, and it makes for great moments of suspense with rules that are clearly defined so that the audience fully understands what is going on and the stakes. The magical mystical powers of certain characters feel very clearly crafted so that when they come into play, they don't really feel like cheap Deus Ex Machina. The great things in this movie are not the similar elements that have been beaten to death, but rather in their willingness to take new chances. Studios right now like to play it safe, especially with a viewing demographic that favors nostalgia and known properties. You can blame Hollywood all you want for making endless franchise films, but you can't deny that right now audiences spend their money for titles they recognize, much like how in the 1940s and 1950s they favored movies with actors they recognized, or the 1970s where they sort of drifted towards the known directorial brand names. Safety in the familiar is very common. In The Creator, we have a big budget film not based on a prior property and willing to explore new ideas and a carefully crafted world that's worth sinking your teeth into. It is one that they have clearly put a lot of thought into for an immersive experience that can still throw in a few narrative twists and turns into that familiar setup. Much like how Hollywood took chances with Barbie and Oppenheimer earlier this year, it needs movies that feed the machine of creativity and allow audiences to again experience something new and fresh. The Creator gives both that familiar safety of the known, but it combines it with a new and enticing world and great speculative ideas. After all, once the AI do take over everything, what are they going to copy if we are not consistently seeking new stories and concepts for them to steal from? But those are just my thoughts on The Creator. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. As always, keep those reels turning.